Well, all alone. No co-host on this episode. Gee, I'm so sad. Psych! It's just me in the studio today. No, but really. Paul's not here today, but that's okay. We still have an excellent show. We have Mark Canlas and Mike Adams here with Wellsite Services and Tuboscope, respectively. And we're talking about temperature management. And I think this is a really great show. It's a great example of two products at NOV and how they really work together to accomplish one goal of temperature management. And it's a really great show, so stick around and hear some frequently asked questions and a little bit more on the tech. Let's get into it. Hey, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me in the studio this morning.
You're welcome.
That's right. Or morning, afternoon, evening.
Good morning.
I don't know where people are watching from.
We're global.
That's right. There we are. Thanks so much for joining. We're talking about temperature management today. Mm-hmm. It's NOV Live. And I have in the studio with me Mike and Mark.
Yes.
That's right.
Yep.
So to start off, can both of you introduce yourselves and what you do here at NOV?
Sure. Mike Adams. I am the Director of Corrosion Control Technical Support for NOV Tuboscope.
Nice.
I'm Mark Canlas. I lead market development initiatives on behalf of Wellsite Services.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask a bonus question. Can you all explain, since we're kind of doing a teamwork between Tuboscope and Wellsite, can you explain briefly what Tuboscope is in a summary and what Wellsite is? We'll start with Tuboscope.
Well, Tuboscope is a service company that is under the EPS banner here, and we do everything from, if you've got tubing, we'll do something to it for it. We'll either do threading, we'll do inspection, we'll do coating. We're a one-stop shop.
Yeah. I suppose it's in the name,
Tuboscope. Well, the name actually goes back to the history of the company back in the 1930s. When we started off as we were inspecting gun barrels. So Tuboscope, yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's a new fact I've learned. Very cool. Mark?
Well, where do I start with Wellsite Services? We're also part of the EPS group within NOV. We do quite a bit of things. We manufacture a lot of our own equipment, but we also have a large services side of our business as well. Right. From a product line standpoint, so the core business from Wellsite Services is like brand products, so solids control, waste management. But we also have managed pressure drilling. We've got cellar tech, and cellar tech, which is below grade well containment cellars. We've got portable power, where we can offer generators, portable lighting, portable HVAC. I hope I'm not forgetting any of our. I did say managed pressure drilling, so we do that as well.
Also, sort of in the name, if it's on the well site.
Sure, absolutely.
Y'all are there. Well, since I mentioned before, we're talking a little bit about temperature management. So I wanted to ask, when we're talking, I think, more on the high temperature side. So when we're looking at drilling in really high temperatures, what are some of the challenges that are faced?
So there's a whole host of challenges. Anytime your drilling project is expected to encounter elevated temperatures or extreme temperatures, you're transferring a lot of that heat energy into the drilling fluid. And anything that drilling fluid touches or comes in contact with can be affected by high temperature. Right. Specific to the drilling fluid, your mud characteristics and your properties can start to break down and degrade, which can lead to hole cleaning issues or wellbore stability issues. And then with tools that are downhole, so things that are on the BHA like LWD, MWD, advanced drilling tools, they all have electronics, they have sensors, they have elastomers that all have temperature thresholds. And so when you start to approach that and you expose it to high temperature for long periods of time, they can start to have reliability issues and they can start to fail. When you have high drilling fluid temperatures, you circulate that back up to surface. Imagine you've got the drilling fluid in tanks that are at an elevated temperature. Now you start to introduce working conditions that can be unsafe for the folks that are working around the tanks or around the equipment. So you've got challenges you've got to absolutely contend with.
Right. And I know, so we have you on today specifically to talk about a product, Tundramax. So what is Tundramax? Where does it fit into these challenges in high temperature?
Yeah, so the Tundramax mud chiller system is our two-stage closed loop chiller. It falls in the category of mud cooling equipment, only in that its job is to take that heat energy away from the drilling fluid. But the way that our system does it is kind of unique. We do it with two-stage cooling. The first stage utilizes an air blast technology, which is it's a proven method for removing heat from a drilling fluid. And its goal there is to really take that initial kick of heat out of the drilling fluid. Once it goes through the first stage, then it passes the drilling fluid over to the second stage, which is where our chiller system takes over. Okay. And that actually uses an HVAC refrigerant system to further reduce the drilling fluid temperature. And the value and the benefit there is that part of our system isn't affected when it's operating in areas where the ambient temperature is really high. Other systems often lose efficiencies whenever they're operating somewhere where there's really high temperatures or high humidity.
Yeah, and I know since we're in Texas here, I have high appreciation for HVAC that doesn't go bad in high temperature.
Absolutely.
Owe a lot to the AC. And then on the Tuboscope side, I wanted to ask a little bit about the Draone TK coating. So can you tell me a little bit about what the Draone coatings are?
Sure. We were approached by a number of people that are working in a bunch of different energy areas, geothermal and oil and gas, number one and two. And they're using the mud coolers, mud chillers, and they weren't seeing the effect all the way down to the BHAs because some of the areas are going to have extremely long laterals, and so they needed something a little bit of extra. So they asked us whether or not we could create a drill pipe coating that could actually insulate as well as protect the pipe against all the corrosion that may occur in that area. So Draone is our latest version of our insulating coatings. It's meant to not only keep the drilling muds cool, but also to keep bathing the BHAs that Mark mentioned a minute ago in this nice cool area so you don't burn out those sensitive electronics.
Now I know, no spilling company secrets here, but how do these work? How do they do that?
How do they do that?
Real scientific questions here on NOV Live.
No, it's a very good question. Essentially what we're doing is you're taking a material on a very thin scale. So for instance, if you were to take a look at a diamond, right? A diamond is extremely good at transmitting heat. It's called thermal conductivity, okay? So a high number of thermal conductivity, like a diamond's 1,000. Steel is typically about 45. And when you get down to our coatings are in 0.162. So we're very insulating. So it's kind of like if you look at the example of a Yeti cup or a styrofoam cup. If you put something cold in, it's going to stay cold. If you put something warm in, it's going to stay warm. And that's what the coatings do.
That's very helpful for, again, the non-scientific brain that I represent over here.
Give yourself some better credit than that, I think. That's a good question. Thank you.
So I want to ask a little bit about on the comparison side, when we're looking also at other offerings out there. So I want to start with Mark. How would Tundramax compare to like mud coolers and stuff out there?
Yeah, so when we set out to design Tundramax, one of our goals was we wanted to make sure we were building a system that would fit on a skid that would be on a single mounted trailer skid. And we were able to accomplish that, and it allows us to be able to rig up and rig down quickly and easily. Now, compared to other mud coolers, it's not unusual that it may require multiple units to be able to match the performance of a Tundramax. So, when you introduce that second and that third unit, as well as additional ancillary equipment to be able to operate multiple pieces of equipment,
Right.
then you start to look at a footprint that could be double or triple the size of a Tundramax. So that's, one of the ways that our system can provide value. If you're on a drilling operation where space is limited, our system takes up very little. That's one of the positive feedbacks that we get is people appreciate that it's all contained, that it's all compact, and that we don't have equipment all over the place.
Right. Yep.
And as I alluded to before, we're very we want to make sure we call our system the mud chiller, because that's where we differentiate.
Yeah, I was wondering because I hear chiller and cooler.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, ultimately, its job is to cool, but we do it with a chiller system, and that gives us benefit in areas where we're operating in high ambient temperatures. So as you had mentioned before, Texas. So South Texas or Haynesville in the middle of summer. I mean, it's not uncommon for temperatures to approach 100 degrees. Well, evaporative style coolers or air blast coolers, they're not as effective when the ambient temperatures are high.
When the air is really
That's
hot.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So because they're fighting heat from two sides. They're trying to extract heat from the drilling fluid, and at the same time, they're doing it in an environment that's already hot. So it's difficult for them to effectively dissipate that heat. Whereas the chiller side of our system, it kind of doesn't care how hot it is outside. It's still going to function to continue to reduce the temperature of the drilling fluid. So it's less affected. The best analogy I can make is if you're driving around Houston, you're on Beltway 8, and it's a hot summer day. We're assuming we have a good functioning AC system. You're going to crank that system up. Your windows are going to be rolled up. And you're going to feel the cold air, and you're going to feel comfortable. You're going to feel good. That's a chiller system. If you were to turn that off, the next best option for you to cool yourself is what? To roll down the window, right?
Right.
And that's going to feel better than if you just drove around with no AC with the window up. But it's going to blow air, but you might feel okay, but you're not going to feel as comfortable.
Right.
And that's really the difference there. We also talk about, with our system, it's closed loop, right? So what that means is that at the very beginning of a project, we will fill the water loop part of the Tundramax with about 900 gallons of water. We'll close it off, and that's all the water that the Tundramax will need from the beginning of the project to the end.
Wow.
When you compare that to an evaporative cooler type system, those systems, you've got to feed it water constantly. Some units will consume 2 to 3 gallons per minute of water. So imagine you've got a site and you've got 3 of those operating at the same time. You've got to make sure you've got dedicated
Holy cow.
water feeding it, right? After about 2 or 3 hours, you've already consumed the same amount of water that the Tundramax requires for a project from beginning to end. So, for some projects that could potentially add some additional things they have to consider. If you're close to a water source, I guess that's okay. Otherwise, you've got to bring on additional equipment, maybe a frac tank to store water, and then you've got to contend with making sure that you've got trucking that comes in and brings water on a consistent basis.
Gosh.
So, that's one of the benefits from using our Tundramax chiller system.
Yeah, no kidding. That's awesome. And then on the coating side, how does TK Draone compare to other coatings that we see?
Well, that's a great question. We've been in the coating business for drill pipe since the 1960s. And so we developed the coatings originally to help with improving hydraulics, which is a very important thing, because the easier it is to move the buds up and down, the less horsepower you need. As time went forward, companies asked for, can you make it a little bit tougher, which means make it a little bit more resistant to handling damage and also the damage used for putting tools or running wire lines up and down it. So when we take a look at those are very basic. Good coatings are still number 1 and number 2 around the world. But when we look at our current coating, the Draone has got built into it better chemical resistance, better flexibility, better insulation characteristics, better physical properties all over to make it more workable and make it last longer in these hot and tough environments.
So for these shows, I try not to do too much research because I want to be able to kind of hear what y'all are saying. But I did hear from the team that kind of a frequently asked question that y'all get is, how tough are these coatings? How tough is it? So can you talk to that?
Yeah, that's a really good question because these coatings are going to be put in some really severe areas. And so our coatings right now, like I said just a minute ago, we built in toughness into it. We built in impact resistance. We built in abrasion resistance. We built in chemical resistance because more and more people with using their drill pipes to do many different things, including completion, which means running acids and really nasty chemicals down there. And so our coatings are meant to resist that, to give a longer life to the drill string and the coating.
And can it handle tools, solids?
It can handle tools and solids. We're currently watching how all those things affect the coating, and happy to say with over 1 million feet that we've introduced into the Haynesville area, we have not seen problems with that.
Incredible. Like I said, I don't like to look at too much the answers. I want to hear from y'all, and I'm like, man, this is all sounding good. This is all very cool. I always like hearing stuff about that. And now I want to ask, how do these two systems work together? What's the teamwork here?
Well, I think they complement each other really well. When you have a high temperature situation, you'll take the Tundramax, which is a system that's working at surface, right? It's doing everything it can to extract the heat energy out of the drilling fluid, try to make it as cold as it can possibly make it before it sends it back down hole. And then you've got Draone, right, which Mike's told me, it's good at keeping cold things cold, right? So you've got cold fluid, and your goal is to send as much of that cold fluid, as cold as it can possibly get, all the way to the bottom of the hole. And what better way to do it than with a coating that's going to prevent that thermal transfer to the fluid.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like passing the baton in a relay race. I'll kind of need each other.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that way. I mean, it's like you go to the refrigerator and you get a glass of water, and if you put it in an uninsulated cup, by the time you sit down and start to drink it, it's now room temperature. So that's not what the customers need. The customers need Mark's very cool muds to get down there and do the bathing to make sure that they're keeping the equipment in a safe condition.
Yeah, excellent. And so what do the customers get as far as like y'all working as a team? What's the benefit that the customers see there?
Well, one of the things that we're noticing from all these is that, number one, they're spending less time on the well, which is an extremely good, important part for that, because that means they're not paying for the rig that much. Yeah. They're also seeing fewer unplanned trips, which a trip is going in and out of the hole, okay? And probably the basic thing comes down to, as Mark mentioned at the very beginning, this sense of equipment that they put down hole is being saved, and it's not burning out or it's not being damaged in all these operations, which saves them money ultimately.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I mean, Mike, it really covered it there. Anytime you're drilling in high temperature operations, you're introducing challenges that contribute to non-productive time.
Yep.
If you're having to trip out a hole, or you're having to have multiple trips because the tools fail or they're unreliable, or if you're having to slow down drilling or stop drilling completely because you've got to recirculate that fluid at surface in order to get the temperature down. All those things contribute to non-productive time. So if you can build a system, or if you can implement a system that allows you to manage the temperature while you're actually drilling, then to me that helps keep your project on time and keeps your operations running safely.
Okay. Thank y'all both so much for coming on the show today. Mark and Mike, M&M. Appreciate the time and explaining this.
Put on a t-shirt.
Put on a t-shirt. No, start a rap group, compete with that other guy. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Great talking to you.
Oh, yeah. Welcome anytime.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for watching.